Hi everyone, it's Skillshare Fashion Drawing Tutorials, and in this lesson we're going to complete this Versace look from Pre-Fall 2018 ready-to-wear collection. And here we have a lot of reptile textures, and we will need some grays, black blender, but not that many actual colors. So here is the pose that I got from the March template set. You can use it if you're like level 3 or higher patron, or you can draw some other pose because we're going to focus more on textures in this tutorial. So I'm starting drawing the look. I start from the color of her denim shirt, and pay attention that just at all the lines, at the distance of the lines from the surface of her body. And here we need to take into account the shape of her breast. And yeah, and when you draw, try to erase all the body lines that you don't need anymore. So here we have the waistline. Also try always to use curves instead of straight lines. So you can see that at her waist I'm using curve instead of just making a straight belt line. So here also some lines more or less straight, but generally we try to use even a little bit curved ones. So here I'm drawing the details of the belt. If we have anything like that seems big, like huge belts, we usually draw it, we usually exaggerate. So for example, if the color is big, we draw it bigger on the sketch. So here we have your jacket. And yeah, usually for the jackets and anything for the upper body, try to draw first the central body part and then attach the sleeves. So here I'm drawing first the body part, and now you can see that the sleeve is partially hidden. We don't see like the side that is closer to the body because there is overlapping. The bodies don't hide part of the sleeve. I have uploaded the reference image. Sometimes I flip the images if I have a different pose, and flipping helps me to get something that resembles my pose. Then I just flip it for the sake of just to make it easier to locate the folds and everything. So I uploaded the image. You can see the original one. Why it's important to look at the original image? Because you know, there is a different way that closes are the closures of garments are different for men and women. So if you flip image, you can have them wrong. Like for women, you will have closures that are typical for men. And so for women, we have them from the right side to the left. Yeah. So the jackets close and everything. And for men, it's vice versa. I have uploaded the reference image. You can see sometimes I flip images just to, in case if my pose and the original pose on the photo, they are similar but direction is different, then I just flip the image. So, but you can see both original photo and the flipped image. And as I always recommend you to have the reference image somewhere so you can see the way that I translated the original texture to the illustration rather than just repeating what I'm doing. Then if you take a look at the image, you can kind of understand the process. So we have a denim jacket, and what makes denim jackets different are all those seams, thread lines that we have, and here we have the pockets. And whenever you draw, just try to take a look where, for example, the bottom of the pocket in relation to your waistline, so you can locate them properly. And also you can see that the sides of the pockets, they seem shorter just because they go a bit to the back and we are looking at that side at the angle. Your trousers, so in this case we have like straight, quite slim fitting trousers. So I'm making them not that wide, just a little bit. Okay. And you can see at your crotch, we draw the bottom of your trousers a bit lower. I'm adding your bag. Okay, let's change it a little bit because it's more rectangular. It's not that deep. So I'm changing, shortening a little bit. So in here we have golden heart hanging. Okay, so in this tutorial I want to show the way that I rendered her skin. I'm going to use tan as the darkest tone. So first I'm showing all the deep shadows that we have on the face. And please watch in the full screen mode to see all the details. And then I spread tan on a plastic surface. You can use any solid surface. It can be glass, metal, anything. So, and then I use satin, dip it into the tan, and just try to, first of all, build a transition from the dark to the lighter skin tone. So I'm working on the borders and adding extra skin tone just further. So, and as I told you before, when I work with skin, I try to work faster. So whenever I apply the marker, it doesn't dry totally before I add the next layer or next marker. So here I'm going to use 3 markers. So satin, the one that I'm using now and mixing with tan, is a mid-tone. So we can call it base maybe color. So we use tan for the shadows, and we're going to use ivory, this one, the lightest one in this case, for the highlights. Highlights are usually this upper part of the cheeks, just below the eyes. It can be a mid forehead part and mid eyelids if they are closed, like in our case. And then while ivory is still wet, I'm adding some satin, and using white ink pen, I'm just making the tip of the nose, making lighter the tip of the nose and this line between the nostrils. And just here and there adding highlights like on the chin, on the cheekbones. With a fine liner, I'm using Micron 005. Just try to use some fine liner that is thinner, so you'll get like a bit more clean details. I'm showing the eyeline, eyelashes a little bit, nostrils, like signature black lips. And then I also use fine line pen for eyebrows. And before eyebrows, let's just add shadows. For that I use purple pencil for the light skin. And for darker tones I would use brown. But usually I still use purple until unless it's really, really dark skin tone. In that case I use dark brown or black sometimes. So I'm adding hair of your eyebrows, more of satin for the contrast, and you can use some purples for as a marker too to add the shadows. So I'm using lilac, satin. When I work with markers, like as any artist with any tools, I work more spontaneously. There is no step 1 or step 2. So feel free to work in your own flow of work and just experiment. It's not like if you follow step by step whatever I do, you'll end up being like, I don't know, like it's not the right way, let's say. It's just the way that I do it, and it's pretty random, I feel so. So just work in a comfortable way for you. I have many students that just, they learn, but they still like keep their style and so on. I want to change your hairstyle, so make it more Brigitte Bardot, maybe. And I want to add here some lock, and I also want to make your hair silver, so like some light gray. Here I add the volume more a bit lower because your head is tilted, and small mole. Okay, let's make it less, more flexible. Some locks here. Okay, so I'm using Ice Gray 2. I'm going to use Ice Gray 2 and Ice Gray 1. So Ice Gray 1 is a bit lighter. It's the main marker that I'm going to use. Just adding here and there. And Ice Gray 2, I divide different parts of hair, adding some, using it for shadows. And just with regular pencil, I'm adding some strokes to show that that's hair, but don't add too much. So don't add in the spots where you have highlights. You can see that main lock in the center is light. You can even add a little bit of white pencil if you want to lighten up a bit hair or add some strokes with it. Okay, there I just want to increase the size of your forehead, so it's a little trick with white pen and a layer of tan on top of it. And I'm showing a little bit of headband and adding details like some pieces of hair with a pencil. Okay, good. You can use purple pencil to show the details, to outline a little bit your head, add extra shadows. So thank you so much for all your recommendations. I'm considering them for the next tutorials. And also let me know if you like this format when we complete the whole look, or you want just to work, just to have them in the form of a lesson where there is no complete sketch, but we just ran the different textures. So, because I've been doing it always like this, but maybe there is more convenient way. So I'm using Cool Gray 5 now to show first all the shadows on your shirt. And again, here I'm trying to work a bit faster and add black in the same spots, maybe a little bit less when we have Cool Gray 5, and it a little bit blends because Cool Gray 5 is still wet. And then I just cover everything with Cool Gray 5. We have that shadow between your breasts because there is a like deepening, not deepening, but depression, right? We have some shadows under the collar, across the jacket, like because there is an overlap, we have some shadows, and we have some diagonal shadows, like folds at your waist, where the like shirt is stuck. So you can add more and more of Cool Gray 5 till you reach the depth of shadows that you like. Once the layer dries, use white ink pen. Here I used 08 of Sakura, but I recommend using 05, like, or if you use any other brand, like the thinnest white ink gel pen that you have, because it will look just more much neater than 08 in my case. But okay, I just did it. I usually record the voice after I draw because there are many things that I cut out, so it's convenient for you to watch the video. So I hope you're not thinking like, why are you talking about something that you can stop doing, like, but I used 08 while I was drawing, and I recommend to use a thinner white ink gel pen. So here we have golden details of your shirt, and we have also golden buttons. For now we are just drawing them with white ink pen. I'm using some blue on the top of gray. It gives very subtle difference, but I want this gray to be a bit bluish, so it's optional. Like, you can use any marker if you want. So next I'm using black, and first of all on the jacket I want just to show the super dark shadows that will end up being almost black anyway, so just adding mostly you see between the bodies and the sleeves, and then just where we have any overlaps we have those dark shadows. And now I'm working with Cool Gray 5, working in a similar way as I did with her shirt. You can see those diagonal like folds that I left uncolored close to the shoulder of your jacket. So if you remember the tip about drawing t-shirts, we have this typical folds for the shirts and for like jackets as well. I'm using a bit of black in this where we have these thread lines, and I keep working with a cool gray 5. So we have that, if you take a look at that left side sleeve, we have that diagonal fold under the top, and the mid part of the sleeve is light. So then at the bottom of the jacket we have several folds. That's why I colored them like darker, because there is this lower leather detail of the jacket that is narrower than the fabric of the jacket, and then once you add all the shadows, you add a cool gray 5. And the best way to draw all the shadows is just to, once, for example, now you learned how to draw like denim, like black denim, just find all the black denim looks and try to draw them. I'm adding these black spots because there we have like a reptile texture. And I'm adding extra cool gray 5 here and there where we had the shadows. And I'm using ice gray 2 for your color, because there we are going to have like highly reflective leather, so it won't be too dark. So you can use some light gray like ice gray 4 for this lower hemline of your jacket, pockets, collar, and the denim part will be cool gray 5. So what I was talking about is, after you finish any tutorial with some texture, try to find like other looks with the same texture and practice more. So because yeah, you can learn some theory, but you won't be able to draw realistically if you just learn the theory. You need to draw the textures as much as you can, as many times. So using cool gray 5, first I add all the shadows, and then just color everything with cool gray 5. And ice gray 4, here we have the leather part. You can color the cuffs as well. I'm using caramel, and I'm adding it on the top of white pen where we have the golden parts. So caramel works really well for the gold. And I'm adding extra shadows with the cool gray 5, just to have really nice contrast. And with white ink pen, and in this case I'm using 05, the thin one. I'm showing that typical thread lines that are typical for denim jackets. And we just now rented this jacket as a cotton, and with these thread lines we show that it's actually denim, which is also cotton, right? So I used 08 for those buttonholes, just to make them thicker, and I keep using 05 for the thread lines. Okay, so here, shoulders, bottom part, And I'm going to use thicker pen for the buttons. And we have also 2 on the pockets. And once they dry, I use caramel fine liner just to add a little bit of tint, so some, you know, a bit olive brown, olive green might work. Some set of fine liners that you can get in any art shop or supermarket. They're quite useful for tiny details. So here on this pocket that is leather, I'm drawing this a bit irregular lines that are thicker, thinner. And then I add some diagonal lines. And adding some spots, like for example, if we have these diamond shapes inside, I just add some spots. Irregularly, you can skip some of those diamonds. So I try just to mimic the texture. That's how I see it to be translated. So here I draw just some irregular lines, and inside I draw just perpendicular strokes, just filling it as if there are tiny bricks inside. So please watch in the full screen mode, because I have this limitation of language when sometimes I really find it hard to explain what I'm doing. Here and there, just as we did with black spots, I'm adding some white spots, especially in the middle area, to show the highlights. And here I'm drawing this curve, like very like, let's say, diagonal lines, intersecting ones, and also add some highlights inside. And you can use some ice gray 4, just some darker gray to subdue a little bit the highlights. Okay, so let's add some shadows with the cool gray 5. The bottom part is also leather. Just adding some rounded squares and highlights. You add white pen where you have the lightest area. For example, I add shadow with cool gray 5. That part is darker one, so I'm not adding highlights there. For her belts, I'm using caramel fine liner, and I'm just scribbling, so I'm not drawing the details of this pattern, but I just scribble because we're looking at this look from the distance, so we just need to show the contrast between its tiny details. And you can add highlights with a white pen. You can also show some smaller details with it. If you have a metallic pen, you can, like the golden one, you can try to use it as well. Okay, so I colored the whole belt with black and showing the details with white pen, and adding highlights with white pencil. For that, you can use some oil or wax pencil. With Ice Gray 4, I'm adding some extra shadows on her shirt. And on her jacket. Alright, so here we have a bigger view, and I feel like I want to add more shadows. So I'm mixing Cool Gray 5 with black, which is like quite dark. But once you add all those details, you might feel like you lack some contrast. That's what I feel. That's why I'm adding shadows, mostly in the same parts, like between the sleeves and your bodice part, anywhere where we have the folds. Okay, so now we're working with her trousers. I'm adding black marker. You remember that at her crotch we have something that resembles like palm tree. We have those folds stretching from the crotch to the sides, and on the thigh part and below, we just on the straight trousers we add shadows in the shape of just like range of heels. If you turn it. So, and on the top we have this horizontal, more or less, shadows, and I'm adding Ice Gray 4 in the middle. And here we have some diagonal folds because of the position of your leg. And here on the side we have this mountain range again, and on this side, and here as well. Again, using Ice Gray 4, just don't want it to shine too much. Now I spread black and use blender. Let's use wider part. You can, if you want to build the smooth transition, you can use black on the border between black area and the rest part. Or you can just blend everything. So I'm using blender, just coloring on the top of trousers. You can skip that step with Ice Gray 4 because when blend is very wet, marker doesn't apply when you add on the top that much, unless it's super dark one. So I blended everything with a blender marker, which is a colorless one. And that's the result. So you can use white gel pen to show the threads. Here we have them just like on your jacket and your shirt. And with Cool Gray 5, I want just to add extra shadows, some thinner folds. And now I'm going to draw this like crocodile type of texture. And it's basically many lines with different widths so that you fill in with these shapes. Like, and you pack them tightly. It's really important that they are packed tightly. And they look a little bit like tees. So I'm going to fill in all these trousers. And it's important that your stripes are different in width, so they can be narrow in the beginning, then wide in the center, and then narrow again, or vice versa. So you don't draw just straight lines. And you can see on the video how it looks like. So I skipped the whole process because just I'm doing the same thing again and again, and then you just fill in everything with some rectangular shapes. When the lines are super, like the stripes are super narrow, you can just draw the lines. It's really difficult to draw the shapes inside. And now I'm using white gel pen to add highlights on some of those shapes, like stronger ones. So I also show some faults, like you can see I draw the lines. So if the shape is in highlighted area, in the light gray area, you can add some, you can color it totally, or fill in totally with a white pen, or you can add some huge spots inside. But if it's dark area on the sides, you can just add the tiny spots, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So here I draw some folds, and here you see, here we have dark areas, so I'm adding tiny spots. And just let's darken that area between your fingers. And there, again, this dark area, I'm adding some tiny spots. But here, the area is more highlighted, so I'm adding more of a white ink inside of those shapes. I'm using black pencil to add some like extra shadows, because as I told you before, black pencil is more opaque and darker than black marker. So if you want to increase contrast for any black garments, you can use black pencil. And again, I'm adding highlights with a white ink gel pen. In that central area that is more highlighted, where we add spots inside those shapes, I mostly draw like something stretched vertically. Like you see in the center, maybe sometimes it resembles like white lines. For your shoes, I'm using Ice Gray 2. Here we are going to have highlights, and the rest just fill in with a black marker. And between Ice Gray 2 and black, add Ice Gray 4 just to build a smoother transition. And since these shoes are also have reptile texture, like alligator one, we're adding these lines and filling in these stripes with the shapes. And take into account the shape of the shoes, so your lines, they follow the shape. And the other side. And here I'm following the shape of the shoe. Alright, take white ink gel pen. First erase all unnecessary lines, and then if you need to show any details, smaller ones, you can use a black fine liner, and adding highlights with a white gel pen. You can see I'm adding where we previously had gray, and not a lot of highlights. I'm using tan for her skin, mostly outlining the shape, and then coloring the rest with satin, and adding extra tan on the top of the satin. So I'm using caramel fine liner and scribbling to show the chains because the details are quite small. And use some light yellow. In my case, I'm using Buttercup Pro Marker to color that disc. And since we have this head shape of Versace in the middle, I'm just drawing this black kind of ring with fine liner. Okay, using ice gray too, I'm just want to get rid of excessive highlights on the sides, especially some thread lines. Okay, so I'm using black marker and I'm defining the top and the bottom. Bottom is darker and wider, and I'm spreading black marker on a plastic surface using blender. Blender is colorless marker, which is perfect for building this sort of gradient. I mix it with black and I move up. I also draw this pattern like horizontal lines in the middle and some spots that I position in a like check order, like not in a chess order, yeah. So okay, so it's important that you move from the bottom to the top. That's how you build this like gradually lightening area, yeah. And extra spots. I try to work faster so my spots are not too big, because more you touch the paper with marker, the bigger the spot is. Next, just using fine line pen to further define the shape of the back. And with a bit thicker fine line pen, I'm drawing the shapes. Something elliptic, but since it's natural pattern, I'm not drawing something specific. Filling it with a black pencil, and then just with a cool gray 5, you can make stronger spots and maybe darken a bit the bottom part. Okay, and I'm just showing more of diamond shapes around those circles and drawing diamond shapes on the top of that black area. And with a pencil, adding extra diamond-like shapes on the borders. So we have more of the pattern. Now with the white pen, you can use something thicker. I'm using 10. In my case, I'm showing these details. Of course, you can leave them uncolored from very beginning, but I did it in a different way. Here we have the chain. We need to wait till that white part dries completely. So I colored the chain on the left with a Buttercup, the light yellow that we used before, and I'm just drawing some like shapes that resemble chain with a caramel liner, nothing specific. adding extra like dark brown. I just try to layer so you can't really see chain. It's just something from a huge distance. So I'm adding caramel on the top of dry pan and trying to be careful so I don't break the surface of that pan. And then add some dark yellow. In my case, it's sunflower. Just tiny details with like olive green. And you can add highlights on the chain with a white pen, like just many dots. So I used Warm Gray 3 first as a shadow layer, then added sunflower, and with the caramel fine liner just scribbling on the top to show the pattern. Last step, adding highlights on this heart shape, a bit more on this side, and that's it. So here we have also metal part, and adding Cool Gray 5 on her cuffs. If you remember, here we have leather too. We're using ice gray. And here, doing the same thing, we're just drawing these lines, filling in each row, then adding highlights with a white ink pen. And where needed, we also add shadows with a black pencil. Okay, showing the edges. I colored your hands with a satin, adding shadows with a tan, and then I would just try to smooth everything with one more layer of satin, using purple pencil to define the shape of your fingers. And then adding fingernails with a white ink pen. And I'm going to do the same thing with your other hand. Just define the shape. So if you want to add contrast, you can use a bit of fine liner for the chain and metal details. And I added a bit of blue, light blue pencil on your trousers, but if you want just to show reflection of some hue, you can do it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and see you very soon in the next one.